Welcome Ramley, how are my Rams superfans doing today? Today we're counting down the top 10 greatest teams in Rams history. Let's get right into it. At number 10, we have the 1949 Los Angeles Rams. This team was led by All-Pro quarterback Bob Waterfield and wide receiver Tom Fears. Waterfield finished the season with 17 touchdown passes and 24 interceptions. Yes, guys, you heard that right. 17 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, and was a first-team All-Pro selection. Man, the NFL has come a long way. Tom Fears would go on to become only the fourth player in league history to go over 1,000 yards in the air with 1,013. This team would finish the year with a regular season record of 8-2-2, but would unfortunately lose to the Philadelphia Eagles in the championship game. This was before the NFL-AFL merger in 1966 and obviously before the first Super Bowl in 1967. At number 9, we have the 1985 Los Angeles Rams, led by quarterback Dieter Brock, who signed with the Los Angeles Rams as a 34-year-old rookie, previously playing 10 years in the Canadian Football League, setting the NFL record for oldest rookie quarterback in history. Despite the team's star running back Eric Dickerson holding out the first two games over a contract dispute, Brock led the team to a 7-0 start, a feat that no quarterback would accomplish in their first season until Ben Roethlisberger came and started 13-0 with the Steelers back in 2004. Brock led the team to a division title, the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs, and set the team rookie records for passing yards, touchdown passes, and passer rating. Most of his rookie passing records have been since broken. The 85 Rams would finish with a regular season record of 11-5. Now, anytime you think of the NFL in 1985, you immediately think of the Chicago Bears and that all-time great defense. While the Rams would be good enough to make it all the way to the NFC Championship game in 85, they ultimately ran into that Bears defense and lost 24-0. Brock would go on to aggravate his back in the offseason. Tests revealed that he had a disc issue in his lower back and one that could not be corrected by surgery. 1985 was his only year in the National Football League. The Rams would go on to draft Jim Everett the following season. At number 8, we had the 1979 Los Angeles Rams, led by quarterback Vince Ferragamo. In 1979, the Rams were the first team in NFL history to have less than a plus 500 point differential and make it all the way to the Super Bowl. The Rams scored only 14 more points than their opponents in 1979, which would help the Rams receive a record of just 9-7. The Rams would go on to defeat the Cowboys and the Buccaneers in the playoffs before losing to the Terry Bradshaw-led Steelers. Pittsburgh would have 10 Pro Bowlers on that team that season. At 7, we have one of my all-time favorite teams, the 2018 Los Angeles Rams. The Rams won back-to-back division titles for the first time since the 70s and made it all the way to the Super Bowl. They finished with a regular season record of 13-3. The 13 wins are most ever by any Los Angeles-based professional football team. Led by Pro Bowlers Aaron Donald, Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, and Corey Littleton, this team started out 8-0 before receiving their first loss, and also won what most would consider the greatest regular season game of all time when the Rams beat the Chiefs 54-51. Can you imagine scoring 51 points and still losing? This was just the second season under coach Sean McVay. 17 years since we played in the Super Bowl and 14 seasons since we won a playoff game. Even though the season ended with a 13-3 loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, it will forever be one of my favorite and most memorable years as a Rams fan. I was only 7 years old when the 99 Rams won the Super Bowl, so I really didn't get a chance to fully enjoy those great years. Yet I vividly remember the Scott Linehan, Steve Spagnuolo, and Jeff Fisher eras. During these times, every season I was left saying, maybe next year. For the 2018 Rams to actually make it all the way to the big game, it meant the world to me. Even though we came up short, it was the start of some very good football in LA. At number 6, we had the 1950 Los Angeles Rams. Now, this team was known for revolutionizing the passing game in the NFL. The 1950 Rams hold the NFL's all-time record for average points per game, scoring 38.8 points per contest. They also hold the record for most points in a 3-game span, with 167 points between October 15th and the 29th, including a 70-point game. They're also the only team in modern NFL history to score 60 or more points twice in a season, and they did that in consecutive weeks. Los Angeles' 466 points scored in 1950 are the most scored by any team in the 50s, and more than 70 points more than the next closest team, which was actually the 1951 Rams. Led by quarterback Norm Van Brocklin and wide receiver Tom Fears and Elroy Crazy Legs Hurst, this offense was truly ahead of its time. They scored a then record 466 points, which was 38.8 per game, which is still a record to this day. Tom Fears would go on to lead the league and set a new NFL record with 84 receptions. The 1950 squad may have been one of the greatest teams ever, but in the end, the Rams lost a shootout to Cleveland on a field goal in the final minutes of the championship game. But don't feel too bad for the 1950s team. I got a feeling we'll be talking about the 1951 team soon. Now at number 5, we have one of the greatest teams of all time to not win it all. The 2001 St. Louis Rams. This team would easily be number 1 on this list if not for Spygate. Yes guys, I said it. If the Patriots didn't videotape the Rams walkthrough the day before the Super Bowl, the Rams would have won, and the 2001 Rams would be number 1 on this list, and they would easily be one of the greatest teams of all time. This was literally the height of the greatest show on turf. And instead of this 2001 team being known as the height of the greatest show on turf, it's often referred to as the beginning of the end. Because as we all know, after losing this Super Bowl, the greatest show on turf started to fade out. But that should not take away from how great this team actually was. They had the league's best offense by leaps and bounds, and they had the league's number 3 ranked defense. This team finished 14-2. With 7 Pro Bowlers and 4 All-Pros. Marshall Faulk would be named Offensive Player of the Year, and Kurt Warner would receive League MVP for the 2nd time. Now the NFL has proved that the Patriots filmed signals in games ranging from 2000 to 2002. However, a Rams Super Bowl walkthrough was not among the tapes that was handed over to them during their investigation. But please, we can all call bullshit on that. You really think the Patriots would film signals from 2000 to 2002 and get to the biggest game in their franchise's history and decide just not to tape anything that week? Give me a break. It's sad we couldn't play this Super Bowl on an even playing field. But if we did, there's no doubt in my mind that this would be one of the greatest, not even the greatest Rams team of all time. This would be one of the greatest teams of all time, period. As you guys can tell, it still bothers me to this day that we weren't able to capture that Super Bowl. At number 4, we have the 1945 Cleveland Rams, led by quarterback Bob Waterfield. These Cleveland Rams would finish the year with a 9-1 record and become world champions by defeating Washington 15-14. The Rams did not have a winning season in their first 7 years in the NFL, but everything came along in 1945 with the franchise's first championship. However, sustained financial losses prompted owner Dan Reeves to move the team to Los Angeles in the offseason, making the 1945 Rams the only champion to play in a new city the following season. Now, we already spoke about the 1950 LA Rams, and at number 3 we have the 1951 Los Angeles Rams. The 1951 team was much like the 1950 squad, loaded on offense and pretty weak on defense. The only difference is that the 1950 squad lost the championship to the Cleveland Browns on a last-second field goal, but the 1951 team beat Cleveland for the title thanks to a 73-yard touchdown from Norm Van Brocklin to Tom Fears to seal the win. Los Angeles led the league in total points, total yards, passing yards, and was 3rd in the league in rushing. The greatest show on turf gets a lot of credit for their amazing offense, yet the Rams' offense of the early 50s was arguably better in comparison to the era that they played in. The 51 Rams would beat the Browns 24-17 to win the franchise's 2nd championship. Now, before we started this countdown, I know all of you guys were probably wondering who's number 1 and who's number 2. Well, here we are. At number 2, we have my personal all-time favorite team, the 2021 Los Angeles Rams. Where do I even begin with this team? Building off the success from the 2018 Rams that lost the Super Bowl, the Rams will spend the next 3 years perfecting their roster, bringing in the best cornerback in the league in Jalen Ramsey, bringing in an edge rusher to complement Aaron Donald and Von Miller, and bringing in a star wide receiver that was wasting away in Cleveland and Odell Beckham Jr. But what made this team a Super Bowl caliber team was the gutsy call to trade away your quarterback that brought you to the playoffs for the first time in over a decade, bringing you to a playoffs 3 out of 4 seasons and winning an NFC championship. Even though these are some great accolades, we all knew we needed better. And when the Rams traded Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford, I knew we were close to finally getting another championship. But I didn't know it would happen in the first year. We started off red hot, had a 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season that scared everyone, almost blew a 27-3 lead in the playoffs, and finally beat the 49ers when it mattered the most. Beating the Bengals in the final seconds of Super Bowl 56 was the cherry on top of the best ice cream sundae ever made. Easily my favorite NFL season ever. And of course, guys, I went back and forth between number 1 and number 2 for a very long time. But of course, at number 1, we had the team that started my love for the Rams, the 1999 St. Louis Rams. This offense led by Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, a rookie Torrey Holt, and Orlando Pace. This team averaged 400 yards per game and 32.9 points per game. First in the NFL in both categories. By a long shot, I might add. What gets a little slept on is just how good this team's defense was. Led by Kevin Carter, London Fletcher, DeMarco Farr, and Grant Wistrom, this Rams defense was 4th in points given up, only giving up a mere 15 points per game, and leading the league in rushing defense and sacks. Kurt Warner would go on to shock the world and become league MVP. Marshall Faulk would win Offensive Player of the Year, and Dick Vermeil would win Coach of the Year. Warner would lead the league in passer rating and touchdowns. Kevin Carter would lead the league in sacks. Starting quarterback Trent Green would go down to a season-ending injury early in the preseason. That's when an Arena League grocery store clerk would take this team over and bring them all the way to the promised land. That is the definition of a Cinderella story. Literally what movies are made from. Let me know what you guys agree on and what you guys disagree with in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and click right here for more Rams content.